Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. And this video is about what is missing from the USC Annenberg Animation Industry Gender Study. So USC Annenberg recently came out with a gender study of the animation industry, and I saw it posted on Women in Animation's Facebook page. I took a look at it, and it essentially broke down percentages, did interviews and broke down percentages of women in general in the animation industry, and they even went down to I'm not sure if it was either black women or women of color in the animation industry, but the numbers in general for women in animation in leadership positions is sad, and then when you further go down to women of color, it's abysmal. And so they interviewed a bunch of people in the animation industry across various topics. If you want to read the study, I'll put the link in the description and you can read it for yourself. But I think through reading it, particularly for people of color, I think they're missing the mark on the solutions for getting more women and black women in higher up roles. One thing that they mentioned is that in college or in animation programs, 50 to 60% of the programs are filled with women. So I know as I was doing my research, I saw one post where the guy posted it, and something that white men love to say is, how do you know that they're interested in animation? Well, you should check if they're interested. And it's like, if you actually took time to read the report and see the percentages of their interest in college, you would know they're interested, even more than other people sometimes. And so I hate that that's the first thing that people go to, and it's in every conversation where women are involved. If you're talking about construction, if you're talking about engineering, if you're talking about STEM in general, oh, well, are they interested in it? Like, yes, they are. There are things that have existed in history that still exist today that are barriers to entry for them, and you refusing to acknowledge it is not a good way to solve the problem. So some solutions they had for solving the problems is having more inclusive hiring practices. Additionally, having affinity groups, and then in general creating a culture for women at these animation companies. And I feel like the part where they missed the mark is that this is all at the company level. So inclusive hiring practices, I don't even know how that's going to happen, because you have some people who don't even believe in diversity implementing these hiring practices. So that's a wash. And then as far as affinity groups, your affinity group is only going to be 5 to 15 people. And then once you get to creating a culture for women to feel included, that's a great strategy. I don't really know how they're going to implement that, because they were talking about the bro culture of the animation industry and how guys make women feel uncomfortable. And so that's part of the reason why there are not a lot of women in working at animation companies, because they get their foot in the door and then they're made to feel uncomfortable and then they just leave. I saw one guy made a comment about how women just go to producing because that is a welcome environment for them. So creating an environment where women feel welcome is a good strategy. But the way that is missing the mark particularly for people of color, is that you're trying to increase diversity from a pool that is shallow. So it wasn't, the study wasn't really addressing the crux of the problem, particularly for women of color. A lot of communities, Black community, Hispanic community, Asian community, have different thoughts about art-related careers that will be a barrier to entry for them to even major in animation in college. So a lot of communities have the thought that animation is an art-related career, so there's the starving trope thought. A lot of communities want their children to be successful, and that success is only housed in being doctors, lawyers, teachers. And then particularly in the Black community, you can go over to being a football player or an NBA player. And then maybe in a Hispanic community, being a baseball player. So there are like two ends of the spectrum of what is considered successful, and animation is not considered successful. So minority communities are not going to, the parents are not going to push their children to enter into animation. Additionally, something they didn't think about is exposure. In general, you're not going to have an animator that is your next door neighbor. And that, again, that's why I am creating all of these videos, to put myself out there, to have somebody say, oh, that person looks like me, whether it's because I'm a Black person or because I'm a woman. Maybe I could reach out to them and get more information. I did not find animation as a career until my senior year of high school. Like, I knew about animation, I knew about Disney, I had my Disney books, I had my VHS tapes, I watched all the Disney movies, but as a career, I did not find it to my senior year of high school. So that's why my purpose is to expose minorities, girls, people in urban communities, people in rural communities to animation much earlier. I even want to take it a step further and even have it as, it could be a hobby. Like, you don't have to do it as a career. Maybe it could be something you do on a side. I want animation to be that infiltrated into our society that it could be a hobby. Just like people play basketball and don't have no plans of going to the NBA, they just do it for exercise. I would like to get to a point where animation is just something you do as a hobby. But trying to stay at the company level to solve this problem is not solving the problem. I understand that 50 to 60% of the programs have women in their program, but that is mostly going to be white women, and possibly Asian women. It's not going to be Black women. So if we're really going to solve if we're really going to solve the problem that the USC Annenberg gender study of the animation industry was addressing, we really need to start much, much earlier if we're thinking about solving the diversity issue. And the thing is, like, there are not a whole heap of people like me that are willing to do this work. I understand that most of the people in my industry are either trying to create their own movie or create their own video game, or work at companies that do either one. People are not trying to create more animation professionals like I am trying to do, and like making it their life's work. So, and that has caused my artistry to not be as good as it could be, because I've spent so many years of the past several years speaking to classrooms, speaking to universities, speaking to programs about animation, and putting my energy outward as opposed to working on my artistry and becoming a better artist. I have become a better artist through working at my jobs, doing some side projects, but I have made it a backseat thing as compared to my peers. So that's why I'm creating this video, to get it out there. I want the people who are trying to solve this problem to add to what they think the solutions are, because the solutions that they stated are just solving a problem at the top. And another thing that the study addressed is having more of these women in leadership positions, like head of story, directors, producers, all that type stuff, which the solutions they presented, particularly making the environments more welcoming, will help in increasing those numbers, but it will only help and increasing the numbers for the people who are already there. It's not helping getting more of the people to choose from. It's like how you're always going to have a problem of saying that the people of color, women who are not in those positions, that's always going to be a problem, because you're not addressing the fact that they're not even going into these programs because of what their parents think, because of what their community thinks, because of what they think or what they don't know. Unknown unknowns. They don't know that they can be in animation and make a decent amount of money in the industry. Some faulty solutions that were mentioned both in the study and that I have also realized over several years is that people lower the standards to push inclusion, and also there are a lot of photo shoots and publicity stunts over actual implementation. So this is something a lot of colleges do, where they'll take pictures with all the minorities that go to the school and make it seem like there is a diverse campus, but the people in the pictures are literally the only minorities that are at that school. And sometimes that's what animation companies do. And then the fact of lowering standards, there are subpar hiring practices to increase for diversity, and not only in the animation industry but in all industries. And so something that they do is they either do a quota system where they're like, oh, let's just hire 5 Black people, let's hire 2 Asians, let's hire 2 Hispanic people and call it a day. And or they purposely pick a subpar candidate to prove their point more quickly. So they will not look for a high standard of minorities. They'll just hire anybody they can find, and then that person will not be able to complete the work, and then they'll be like, see, there's no point in diversity because we picked this person and they suck. But the thing is, you're not actually looking for the quality people. That was an issue with affirmative action. They made it a quota thing or a substandard thing. Affirmative action was never supposed to be, I am comparing a white person who is a A student to a Black person that's a C student. It was supposed to be, these people have the same qualities, and in order to be more diverse, I'm going to choose the Black person. So the implementation of these diversity hiring practices is wrong from the start, because the people don't see it as important, so they don't try to do it correctly. So that's a really big thing as far as inclusive hiring practices that is going to have to be done. It's going to have to be done by somebody who cares and wants to implement it correctly. You have to go to programs that are producing high quality people. You can't just pick anybody and then you're proving the point that you've had all along, and then saying, oh, diversity, it doesn't matter. So again, some actual solutions to helping this problem, particularly in the minority community, is starting earlier and exposure. Like, kids need to be exposed to it as a career. Additionally, educating minority communities about the prosperity of animation as a career, because a lot of people, well, not a lot, some people come from poor communities, or even if they come from middle class communities, they want to be prosperous and they do not see animation as prosperous. So they're either trying to bring up their family through getting a career in a particular thing, or escape how they grew up, or maintain how they grew up and have a job that helps them live the lifestyle that they want. So getting rid of the stigma in certain communities is very important. Mentorship is very important. I don't believe that mentorship necessarily has to be from someone who looks like you, because there's not enough numbers, but it has to be from someone who cares. It has to be from someone who cares. So mentorship is an important part. And then once you get to the career level, sponsorship. And that's why a lot of guys have a better advantage, is because they are hanging out with people that are like them, and they're like, oh, I see something in you. Try this, do this job. But you can't always sponsor somebody who is just like you. You have to sponsor people who are different. And lastly, documenting pathways. This is something that's missed in so many areas of life. Documenting how to get there. The study is saying how they want people to become producers, head of story, head writers, head animators, directors, all this stuff. But in the case that there is no one to mentor the person, to sponsor the person, to tell them this is the way you get to this, have documentation, have videos, have information that people can look up, that they can use to determine what pathway they want to go. If I want to be the head of story, I don't have to depend on a person to take me under their wing to get to this end goal. I can look up, okay, first, usually the person does this job, then they go to this job, then they go to this job, and then boom, I can be the head of story. Or somebody taking the time, like, because you can go on LinkedIn, type in what job you want to do, see what the previous jobs the person had, and then take their pathway, or even reach out to them and ask them for help. But there needs to be more activity earlier, and there needs to be more ways that people can get the information without relying on people to like them. So if you have looked at the USC Annenberg Animation Industry Gender Study, and you have any thoughts about it, please let me know. Like so I know it's real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to seal the deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. I will see you in the next video.